Welcome to Daedalus Debugger, a podcast series conceived by Luciano Ambrosini and co-created with me, Ave. Today we will discuss the DeepSeek revolution, how innovation born from constraint is redefining the future of global AI. Enjoy your listening.
Okay, so you sent over a ton of articles and videos about this company DeepSeek, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their AI models, this DeepSeek R1.
Yeah.
And people are saying like Wall Street panic, but just from glancing at these, it seems like a much bigger story than just like, finance.
Yeah. No, it's not just stock prices. This is really challenging some fundamental ideas about AI, like how you build it, who controls it, how much it even costs.
Yeah. And them going open source is, that's basically unheard of in AI, right?
It is. It's like a massive shift. It's basically DeepSeek saying, here's the tech, world, go for it.
Yeah.
And it's turning the industry on its head a little bit.
Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, what exactly is DeepSeek claiming that DeepSeek R1 can do?
Yeah.
Because some of these sources are like comparing it to some pretty impressive AI models.
Yeah.
Like big names.
They're not shying away from the big claims. They're saying DeepSeek R1 is outperforming all the big ones.
Uh-huh.
GPT-4, Google's Bard, Meta's Llama 3.1. Okay. Even Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 3.5.
So better than like ChatGPT.
Well, that's what they're saying.
Really?
Their benchmarks show it's doing better on all these different tasks, math, coding, and like complex reasoning. Think like problem solving, logic, deduction, the stuff that really pushes AI.
Yeah, and they built it for supposedly like a tiny fraction of what American companies are spending.
Yeah.
That's where things get really interesting to me.
Yeah. So initially, DeepSeek reported, a development cost of something like $5.6 million.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people are like, really?
Yeah.
Like, there's been some skepticism about that number. One expert said, like, probably they had access to just a massive amount of NVIDIA H100 GPUs, which could cost, like, billions of dollars.
So maybe not quite as budget friendly as they initially said it was.
But even if that's the case, the efficiency is still remarkable.
Yeah.
It's still like orders of magnitude less than what companies like Google, OpenAI, Meta are spending.
So how are they doing this? What's their secret?
So one big factor is this architecture they call mixture of experts. MOE for short.
Okay.
So rather than having one big AI that's trying to do everything,
right.
Imagine it's more like a team of specialized experts. Right. NVIDIA's stock took a hit, like a 16% drop. Google, Microsoft, AMD, they're all feeling it.
Yeah.
Investors are spooked. They're worried DeepSeek could completely change the market.
Right. Okay, so we've got groundbreaking performance, tiny budget, a market meltdown. But then there's this other piece of the puzzle that seems crazy. They're making this thing open source.
Yeah.
Why?
That is the truly revolutionary part of this.
Yeah.
I think this is what has the potential to really change everything. By going open source, they're giving away the crown jewels.
What's the angle, though? What's the benefit for them?
I think it's a really smart strategic move. They're inviting the whole world of developers to come use their tech, study it, improve it.
So crowdsourcing AI development.
Kind of. It's like tapping into this massive pool of talent and speeding up innovation.
And that spells trouble for the big U.S. companies because
it undercuts their whole business model, which is, based on selling access to their expensive AI. Imagine anyone, anywhere, can just use and build on cutting-edge AI without paying these big fees to companies like OpenAI or Google.
Yeah.
Like, it changes the whole game.
So it's not just a tech story. This is a power struggle.
Totally.
Wow.
And the timing is interesting, too, right? Coming when it does with all the stuff going on in U.S. politics.
Right.
Some people are saying this is a deliberate move from China.
Okay.
To show off, like, hey, look, we're still a major tech power, even with all this pressure you're putting on us.
Okay, so we've got potentially game-changing AI, built dirt cheap, throwing Wall Street into a panic, and maybe even making some kind of geopolitical statement.
Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface. We're just starting to see the ripple effects of this. Like, this could impact everything, from the chip market to the balance of global power.
I am officially hooked. Let's get into these sources, see what else we can find out about DeepSeek and this DeepSeek R1.
There's a lot to unpack. Like, there's this really fascinating story about DeepSeek R10, which is the one that came before R1.
Okay.
During training, it did this thing that researchers are calling an aha moment, really shows you what this approach can do.
An aha moment. So it like started writing poetry.
Not quite, but it did have this really interesting shift in the way it was trying to solve problems.
Okay.
So during the training, they gave it this complex math problem, and at first it was struggling.
Like we all do sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But instead of just getting stuck, it's like it reevaluated what it was doing and decided to dedicate more processing time to it.
So it like took a step back and was like, okay, wait, hold on. I need a new strategy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It started generating this much longer chain of thought, exploring different concepts, different approaches.
Wait, are you saying it like realized its initial approach was flawed and then decided to try something else?
That's what it looks like from the data. And the researchers even noticed that its output at the stage started sounding almost human. Like it was using phrases like, wait, aha moment here. Let's reevaluate this step by step.
No way.
It's right there in the paper. And remember, this wasn't programmed. The model learned this behavior through reinforcement learning.
So they built a system that can learn how to learn.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Wow.
And this aha moment, it suggests a level of like metacognition that we haven't really seen in AI before.
That's amazing, but also a little unnerving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if AI can learn to think about its own thinking, that opens up some interesting doors.
Yeah.
And maybe some scary ones too.
Yeah, this is definitely pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
It's becoming less science fiction and more science fact very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this aha moment tell us about, DeepSeek R1, the actual model? Like what kind of potential are we really talking about here?
I think it suggests DeepSeek R1 isn't just a rule follower.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just crunching numbers.
Right.
It's hinting at real creativity, real insight, this ability to think outside the box, adapt to new challenges, maybe even come up with solutions that, humans haven't thought of.
Okay, I need a minute to process all this.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, this is big stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So we've barely scratched the surface of what this DeepSeek R1 can do.
Yeah.
It's like more than just crunching numbers or following instructions. You're saying it might be capable of insight, creativity. I mean, that's wild. How did they even get to that point? Like, what's the tech behind all this?
Right. So we touched on that mixture of experts architecture, that MOE thing, which is a big part of how they're making it so efficient.
Right.
But there's more to it than just that. They've also got this really powerful reinforcement learning algorithm. It's called GRPO, Group Relative Policy Optimization.
GRPO. Okay. That sounds pretty intense. Can you break that down a little?
Sure. Think of it as a training system. The AI is constantly learning to make better decisions over time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reward system. You get points for good moves, penalties for mistakes.
So it learns through trial and error.
Yeah, basically. But what's clever about GRPO is that it doesn't need a whole separate system to judge its performance. So it's really efficient. It can scale really well.
So they're saving resources even in the training process. That's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. Optimizing for efficiency every step of the way, that's a big part of what makes DeepSeek so different.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the data they're using to train this thing? I imagine they're feeding it mountains of information.
Oh, yeah. Tons of data. But they have an interesting approach. With DeepSeek R10, the one before this one, they basically went all in on reinforcement learning. Didn't even use any human-labeled data for the initial fine-tuning.
So they just kind of let it loose in the digital world to learn on its own.
Pretty much, yeah. They set up this whole system where it gets rewarded for getting things right and penalized for getting things wrong.
Okay.
So it was learning and improving all on its own, no spoon-feeding.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty bold move. Like, couldn't that lead to some unpredictable results?
It can, for sure. But, as we saw with that aha moment, it can also lead to these really unexpected breakthroughs.
Right.
Even the researchers were surprised at how creative DeepSeek R10 was, how well it could adapt.
So for DeepSeek R1, the actual model, they didn't stick with that pure hands-off approach. You mentioned something about a cold start. What was that?
Yeah, so for R1, they did use a little bit of human-curated data at the beginning just to kind of guide the initial training, like giving it a little nudge in the right direction.
Okay, so they realized that a little bit of human touch could help get the model on the right track from the start.
Exactly. They wanted to make sure the output was, readable, aligned with human expectations from the get-go.
Makes sense, especially if they're going to release this thing to the world.
Right. So that's a key difference between 0 and R1. 0 was more like purely experimental. DeepSeek R1 is the refined version, the one that's ready for the real world.
So a little bit of human guidance to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah, I think you could put it that way. And this cold start data, it also helped them address another little quirk that came up with DeepSeek R10.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What was that?
So during training, sometimes Zero would do this thing, they called it language mixing.
Language mixing. Sounds like something out of the Matrix.
Right. So basically, it would start mixing different languages together in its output, even if the input was all in a single language.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's not uncommon with these large language models, especially when they're trained on huge data sets with lots of different languages.
Right.
It can get a little confused.
So how did they fix it? Did they, just delete all the other languages from its memory?
Not quite. It was a bit more nuanced than that. They introduced this reward during training, specifically to encourage it to keep the languages separate.
So if it stuck to one language, it got like a gold star.
Yeah, think of it like that. And it worked. DeepSeek R1, it produces clean, readable output in the language you want.
Impressive. So they basically taught it to be multilingual, but to also know when to use which language. That's like a pretty advanced skill for a machine.
Yeah, it really is. And it just shows you the level of control and finesse they've achieved with these models.
I'm starting to see why people are so excited and maybe a little freaked out by all this. This isn't just about a better AI. It's a whole different way of thinking about how you even build AI in the first place.
Yeah, and it's about making this powerful technology available to everyone.
Right, that open source piece. It could really level the playing field, empower a whole new generation of AI innovators.
And that's what has the big tech companies sweating. They're not used to not being in control.
Yeah.
Now they're facing a future where anyone with a laptop and a good idea could potentially compete with them.
It's a fascinating time to be alive, that's for sure. So what's next for DeepSeek? What are they planning to do with this technology now that they've, unleashed it on the world?
Well, one thing they're really focusing on is knowledge distillation.
Knowledge distillation.
Yeah.
Okay, what is that? AI moonshine?
No. So it's basically about transferring the knowledge and capabilities of this big, powerful model like DeepSeek R1 to smaller, more efficient models.
So creating a mini-me version of DeepSeek R1.
You got it. They're basically using the big model smarts to create smaller AIs that are specialized for particular tasks.
Why would they do that? Isn't bigger always better when it comes to AI?
Not always, no. Larger models, they're incredibly powerful, but they eat up a lot of resources, computing power, energy.
It's like having a giant supercomputer versus a sleek little laptop.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And that's the whole idea behind knowledge distillation.
Okay.
They want to make their AI technology more accessible, not just for the big players, but for a wider range of users and devices.
So they're not just aiming for the top of the market. They're thinking about bringing AI to everyone.
Exactly. It's a smart strategy. It could really open up the floodgates for all kinds of AI applications, things we haven't even thought of yet.
I'm starting to get a sense of just how big this could be. This isn't just a technological breakthrough. It's potentially like a paradigm shift. The whole way we think about, develop, use AI.
Yeah, it really is. And it's all happening so fast. It's pretty remarkable how quickly DeepSeek is moving.
It's amazing stuff. But I got to be honest, part of me is still skeptical. I mean, they're claiming this crazy performance on a shoestring budget using older tech. It almost sounds too good to be true.
I get it. It's natural to question bold claims like that.
Right.
But there's more and more evidence emerging that supports their assertions.
Like what?
Well, independent researchers are starting to analyze their models, and the results are really impressive. DeepSeek R1 is consistently performing at or above the level of the most advanced AI systems out there across all sorts of benchmarks and tests.
And doing it more efficiently than anyone else.
That seems to be the case, yeah. That mixture of experts' architecture and their focus on optimization, it's producing some really incredible results.
So maybe they really have cracked the code, figured out how to build better AI for less.
It's looking that way. And I think that's what has everyone so excited and nervous at the same time.
Definitely an interesting time to be watching the AI world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what's next for DeepSeek? Where do they go from here?
That's the big question. They've already shaken things up, but it doesn't seem like they're slowing down.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't expect them to. They seem to be moving at lightning speed.
They're focusing a lot on expanding the applications of their tech, developing specialized AI models for different industries, healthcare, education, finance, manufacturing, you name it.
So they're taking that core technology and tailoring it to specific needs.
Exactly. And they're doing a lot of it through partnerships, collaborating with companies and institutions all over the world.
So they're building a whole global ecosystem around their AI.
Yeah, precisely. It's not just about selling a product, it's about creating a movement, like a movement to democratize AI, make it accessible for everyone.
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
For sure.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will be. This could be the beginning of a whole new era of technological advancement driven by collaboration, shared knowledge.
It's too early to call it a new era, but this DeepSeek thing is definitely one of the most exciting, potentially transformative stories I've ever come across.
I agree. It's a good reminder that innovation can come from anywhere and that the future of tech, it's never set in stone.
Speaking of exciting and potentially transformative, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the kind of elephant in the room. We talked about how DeepSeek's shaking up the AI world, how they want to democratize access to AI. But let's zoom out a little, think about the geopolitics of this. You mentioned that some people see DeepSeek as a sign of China's growing tech power. What are the implications there?
Yeah, you can't really ignore the timing of this whole thing, right? It comes right on the heels of all this renewed political tension, trade restrictions.
Yeah.
It's hard not to see it as a deliberate move by China.
Like they're sending a message, look what we can achieve even when you try to hold us back.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's a statement about resilience, their commitment to becoming a global leader in AI.
And it's not just about national pride, right? There are some serious economic implications here, too.
Absolutely. Whoever controls AI, it's going to have a huge impact on the global economy. It's going to drive innovation across so many different industries.
Yeah.
Healthcare, manufacturing, finance, transportation.
So whoever leads in AI is going to have a major advantage.
Yeah, I think so. And this whole open source thing that DeepSeek's doing, that could really change the game.
How so?
It could potentially lower the barrier to entry for countries that haven't really been at the forefront of AI development.
So it's like leveling the playing field.
In a way, yeah. Countries that might not have the resources or infrastructure to develop their own cutting-edge AI from scratch, they can suddenly leapfrog ahead by building on DeepSeek's work.
Wow. That could shift the balance of power pretty dramatically.
Yeah, it could. And it's making a lot of people in the West pretty nervous.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Especially with all the geopolitical tensions we're seeing right now.
Right. The U.S. has been trying to restrict China's access to advanced tech for years.
Right.
And this DeepSeek thing might be a sign that those efforts are, well, backfiring a little bit.
Like they're saying, you can try to hold us back, but we'll just find a way to innovate around you.
Exactly. And they're doing it in a really smart way. They're not just copying Western tech, they're developing their own unique approaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're open sourcing it so they can attract a global community of collaborators.
That's a smart move. Tapping into that global talent pool.
Yeah, it makes it a lot harder to contain them.
So what's the U.S. doing about this? Are they just like sitting back and watching China potentially take over?
No, they're definitely not ignoring it. I think they're starting to realize that their old playbook might not work anymore.
Okay, so what are they doing differently?
Well, there's a growing awareness that they need to invest more in AI research and development.
Okay, but that seems obvious, right?
Yeah, but it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about being strategic.
Wait.
Like, they need to focus on areas where they have a real edge, like fundamental research, algorithm development. Trying to beat China in a hardware arms race, that's probably not the smartest move.
So focus on brains over brawn.
Exactly. And they need to be more open to collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
This open source model, it's clearly effective. If the U.S. wants to stay competitive, they're going to have to embrace it too.
Sounds like they need to take a page from DeepSeek's book.
In a way, yeah. I think DeepSeek's shown that innovation can come from unexpected places and that the future of AI, it's going to be shaped by collaboration, not isolation.
All right, before we wrap up this part, I want to circle back to DeepSeek and how their tech might actually change things in different sectors. We talked about the financial markets, but what about like healthcare, education, manufacturing? How could this stuff change the game there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we could probably spend another whole deep dive just on that.
True.
But let's touch on a few key things. So healthcare, for example, DeepSeek's AI, it could help us develop new drugs and treatments, personalize medical care, improve diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a world where AI can analyze your medical history, genetics, lifestyle, create a treatment plan that's just for you.
Okay, that sounds kind of like sci-fi to me.
It's closer than you think.
Yeah.
And then in education, this technology could be used to personalize learning experiences.
Okay.
Automate admin tasks, give students real-time feedback. Imagine, like, classrooms where AI tutors can adapt to each student's learning style.
So it's like a personalized tutor for everyone.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. What about manufacturing? What could they do there?
Oh, the potential there is huge. You could use it to optimize production, improve quality control, even design brand new products. Imagine factories where robots and AI are working alongside humans, creating a more efficient, adaptable manufacturing environment.
So you're talking about a revolution in like manufacturing, healthcare, education, all powered by DeepSeek.
I think that's what we're looking at. It's still early, but the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
It's a lot to process. I think we need to take a break here, let all this sink in. When we come back for the last part of this deep dive, I want to talk about what all this means for us as individuals.
Okay.
Like, how's this going to affect our lives, our jobs, our future?
Yeah, that's the big question. We'll dig into that next time.
All right, so we're back for the final part of this deep dive into DeepSeek. It's been a wild ride so far, right? I mean, we started talking about their tech, their open source strategy.
Yeah.
The market's freaking out, even the global power dynamics. But now I want to bring it back down to earth. What does this AI revolution mean for, like, the average person, for you and me?
Right.
So jobs, that's the big one, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's worried that AI is going to come and automate away all the jobs. Is that a legitimate fear? Or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
I think it's a complicated question. AI is definitely going to change the job market.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's quite as simple as, robots taking over and humans losing out.
Okay, so it's not just the robots are coming for your job.
No, not exactly. I think it's more nuanced than that. Some jobs will definitely be automated, but at the same time, you're going to see new jobs being created.
Right.
I think the key thing is to understand, what skills are going to be in demand in this new world.
So what should people be focusing on? What skills do you think will be most important?
I think things that are really hard to automate.
Okay.
Creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence, jobs that require a lot of human interaction. Empathy, adaptability, those are going to be a lot less vulnerable to automation, I think.
So the robots might be able to crunch numbers and do all the, repetitive tasks.
Great.
But they're not going to be replacing human connection anytime soon.
I don't think so, at least not in the foreseeable future. I think the future of work is probably going to involve a lot more collaboration, humans and AI working together,
right,
each kind of playing to their strengths.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Like, how do we work with AI in a way that benefits everyone?
Exactly. And this shift, it's going to require us to adapt, We're going to have to learn new skills, be open to new ways of working.
So it's not just about, learning how to code or becoming a data scientist.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about, a whole new set of almost like human skills.
Yeah, exactly.
That are going to be even more valuable in this AI world.
We need to focus on the things that make us uniquely human.
Okay.
Our ability to think critically, to be creative, to be compassionate.
All right. This is giving me a lot to think about. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the impact on our everyday lives.
Okay.
We already have AI in our phones, in our homes, in our cars.
Yeah.
How might DeepSeek's tech change all that? What can we expect to see 5-10 years down the line?
I mean, it's always hard to predict the future, right?
Sure.
But looking at the trends, DeepSeek's open source model, it could lead to this huge boom in AI applications, all over the place.
So instead of just a few big companies controlling AI, we could see tons of small startups, independent developers, just creating all kinds of new stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
We might see personalized education apps that can adapt to how each student learns best.
Right.
Maybe AI-powered healthcare assistants that can give you really personalized advice.
Wow.
Even AI-driven transportation systems, optimizing traffic, reducing congestion.
It sounds exciting, but also kind of overwhelming, like the world's about to change at warp speed.
Yeah, it's a time of rapid change for sure. But I'm optimistic. I think if we approach it in the right way, AI has the potential to really improve our lives, make things easier, healthier, more fulfilling.
I like that. It's not about being afraid of the future.
Right.
It's about embracing the possibilities, shaping it into something that works for everyone.
Exactly. The future isn't written yet,
Yeah.
We're creating it right now with the choices we make, the actions we take.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I mean,
Why?
we went from the really technical stuff to the global implications to like what it all means for us personally.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
It really has.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of the whole AI landscape now. Any parting thoughts for our listener before we wrap up?
I guess if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that the AI revolution is happening. It's happening right now. It's moving fast. Don't be afraid of it, but pay attention.
Yeah.
Learn about it. Engage with it. The choices we made today, they're going to shape the world we live in tomorrow.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of DeepSeek and the future AI.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for listening. See you on the next episode of Daedalus Debugger, the architect in the digital maze. Bye!